Bill, Illinois, it's two 35-minute flights, $400 round trip.
Yeah, there was
I was happy to get it for $400.
Yeah, you're happy to get it.
I was like, well, gee, only $400.
yeah, my brother-in-law wants to come home for Labor Day weekend from Seattle on for the family reunion, and it's $1,000, from Seattle to Traverse City.
My kids came home this weekend, or last
Where the
week.
rest of the gang is.
Both flights here were delayed like 3 hours. And they went on separate flights back.
I don't
and
know.
both flights
Police
back
called.
from here to New York City.
He's out of town.
Were delayed, hours. They didn't have one flight that was on time through the whole thing.
It's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order, August 25th, 7 o'clock. We rise, please, for pledge and the prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your continued blessings, those blessings that are evident to us, and those that you guide us to see in the slivers of our lives, and even those that we learn to appreciate through painful circumstances. Blessings you have given us, such as the dedication and honor of our sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, that serve to protect our nation with their very lives. These are the blessings of your gifts that we enjoy every day, and yet we are so painfully reminded of them when we lose someone such as Sergeant Jason Kalo, who sacrificed so much and was brought home to you while serving his fellow man. As only you can, please comfort Sergeant Kalo's family as they grieve his loss. Heavenly Father, we pray that you protect all of our troops. Keep them in your safety and love in this life and the next. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka.
Here.
Richardson.
Yes.
Max Bauer. Inman.
Here.
Hooper.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Chairman Thomas.
Here. And Mr. Fleece is excused. Yeah. The next item is to approve the minutes of July 28th.
Second.
Moved and supported, no changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carried. And then we have to approve the...
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the meeting minutes of the closed session that were on our table this evening.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carried. Now it's time for the first public comment of the evening. Would you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Thank you. Anybody want to speak? Yeah, sure. Give us your name and address, please.
Kevin Sandvig, 563 Lost Lake Road, Interlaken, Michigan. And I think everybody probably here recognizes the name anyway. I've sent you letters. I have not heard any replies, not one single reply. And I'm here tonight wanting to get one simple question answered, please. That's all I'm asking. And that is, am I a Grand Traverse County employee? I'm looking for a yes or a no, please. Can anybody please answer that? If depending upon the answer, if it's no, I have not received a termination letter. If it's yes, why were my benefits, all my benefits, terminated? That's why I'm here tonight.
And you're asking for an answer. Are you aware of this, Mr. Cooley?
I'm not familiar with the
You're not
situation.
familiar
I
with it?
know Mr. Sandvig.
Mr. Loya?
This would be a legal interpretation that I would suggest we give to Bob and get an answer, and then we can give him a formal answer in a written letter from the board once the attorneys looked at that and made a determination of it. The impact of the answer would have impacts that need to be weighed before a legal determination is made.
Question, you have been aware of the situation, so has our HR director as well?
Absolutely.
And the letters that you've received?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wouldn't we need that answer prior to all my benefits being terminated, which is affecting my family? Wouldn't we need to know that answer before my fringe benefits have been totally terminated?
It shouldn't take him too long to get an answer, probably.
No, maybe by the end of the week.
You'll be notified by mail.
Okay. What am I going to be notified of? Whether I'm an employee? Is that what I can look forward to, please?
That was the question you asked, and that's
Yes.
the answer we'll try to get you.
Okay.
I'm not going to make any commitments to what the answer will be. I don't know that until the attorneys look at it, but we will get you an answer.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandvik. Anyone else? If not, we'll close public comment, and the next item of business is approval of agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Now, special order of business. First thing is a certificate of appreciation, and this is a plaque sent to Grand Traverse County from the Census Bureau, telling us we did a good job in the census for this year. And I have a letter to Mr. John Syke, who was ahead of the census in the county, and our planning director, from Dennis, thanking him for the good job he did, because he was very instrumental in getting all the work done that we had to do. So everybody got a copy of this, so that's that. But anyway, hey, we don't get many plaques from the federal government.
We don't even want to know how much it costs, so we'll just
Well.
appreciate it and hang it up.
Yep.
So we had 80% of the state was 72% response rate?
That was my understanding.
Yeah, it was right up there. The next item is watershed forestry presentation. Ellen Kohler.
Aye.
I'm not really used to sitting down when I do this, so we'll see how this goes. I'm Ellen Kohler. I'm a policy and attorney and policy specialist with the Watershed Center for Grand Traverse Bay. I am going to talk to you about our watershed forestry initiative, but I want to start off by just giving you a little background about the Watershed Center. I'd love to believe you all know everything about it, but maybe you don't. Our work focuses on protecting and advocating for clean water throughout the Grand Traverse Bay watershed, which includes the whole area on the map. The largest part of the watershed is the Elk Rapids chain of lakes, which provides 60% of the flow into Grand Traverse Bay comes through that watershed. The surface flow comes through that watershed. The next largest sub-watershed is the Boardman River sub-watershed. That provides about 30% of the flow into Grand Traverse Bay. And the remainders of the sub-watersheds, contribute in their way as well to the surface flow. But it's a rather large area. It's 100,000 square feet of area that is involved in the watershed. So that just gives you a little bit of background about the area that we're dealing with. And in the context of that work, several years ago, we developed a watershed protection plan that was approved by the Department of Natural Resources and Environment and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And in the context of that plan, We developed a list of pollutants that we're concerned about in the watershed in general and in Grand Traverse Bay. And so these two lists are, the first one is about the pollutants of concern throughout the entire watershed, and the first two are sediments and nutrients. And then for the bay itself, the pollutants of interest, the top two are nutrients and invasive species. So that gives you context of the work that we're doing and our focus. Yeah.
I was going to say, what do the numbers represent?
So number one means the top priority.
Oh, I see.
So nutrients are the top priority
Oh, I
for the
get
bay
that.
entirely, but, I mean, for the bay itself, for the watershed, it's sediments.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so it's just a ranking. In the context of that work, particularly focusing on the entire watershed and looking at sediments and nutrients, we're starting to work on, or starting to look at helping all of us get a better appreciation for the role that trees and forests play in protecting water quality throughout the watershed. So in that context, that's where the Watershed Forestry Initiative comes from. A basic definition of watershed forestry is just looking at forests and forestry practices and what they do to protect water quality, water flows, watershed health, and the health of the condition of the watershed. This is an initiative that's also been a focus for the U.S. Forest Service. It's just a simple statement from them about the role that forest practices are critical in maintaining healthy watersheds. Trees help prevent erosion, filter contaminants before they enter waterways, absorb rainfall and snowmelt, recharge aquifers, and slow stormwater runoff. So, just in a sum, that's why we're concerned about trees and forests in terms of water quality. Obviously, they play lots of other roles in our community, but that's, from our perspective, what we're concerned about. And we spend a lot of time at the Watershed Center talking about stormwater. It's, a really sexy topic, but it's the vector that conveys most of the sediments and nutrients into our surface waters is stormwater. So whether it's rainfall or snowmelt, that's how most of our sediments and nutrients get into our surface waters. And just looking quickly at general information about what happens with stormwater on areas with natural cover, you get a 10% runoff. So what that means is water that's running across the land, not getting intercepted by any vegetation or anything, and going into surface water. So on a natural cover area, only 10% of the water goes directly into surface waters without any kind of treatment. In areas where you have 75 to 100% impervious surface, you're looking at 55% of your runoff going into surface waters without any kind of slowing or treatment in that area. Obviously, that's the kind of thing we're concerned about, because that's what's creating the, or allowing sediments and nutrients to get into surface waters without any treatment. This also dovetails in with other initiatives throughout the country, some of them spearheaded through the U.S. Forest Service. The work that we are doing is being funded through the federal government, pass-through money through the Department of Natural Resources and Environment through the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. There's also groups in the Northeast and the Chesapeake Bay area that are working on forestry initiatives in terms of water quality. The focus is looking at how forestry is tying into protecting water quality. And in the last year, the Forest Service did an analysis looking at all states in the Northeast, and this is the information from Michigan. So we're looking at trees in on urban and community lands, so not commercial forestry lands. Okay, so these are, on parklands in cities. They found that there are 107.8 million trees in Michigan on these kinds of lands, and these are the kinds of services that those trees are providing for our communities. This, obviously, this analysis demonstrates a lot of services that are benefiting our air quality protection. But that's part, although that's not the focus for the Watershed Center, that's also important in terms of understanding the role that trees are playing in our environment in terms of protecting, providing ecosystem services. The tools we've been looking at with respect to stormwater and water quality protection include things like this, which is the National Tree Benefit Calculator. You can go onto this website and you can use it prospectively and say, you know what, I want to plant a couple trees. Let's see what that kind of benefit is going to provide for me. So here's a setting where, for example, if somebody's planning an area and wants to say, hey, I'm going to plant some trees and I want to see what kind of stormwater benefit I'm going to get. If you plant 12 maple trees, 4 inches of diameter. That's going to intercept about 1,400 gallons of stormwater. This is not a tool that we could use in a regulatory manner. It's not, that precise, but it gives you an idea of what kind of role those trees are playing. And just as an aside, we've also been working with the Drain Commissioner here in Grand Traverse County in terms of being able to provide people credits for doing this kind of thing. It's called low-impact development, but he does have a mechanism for making those calculations that would be in a regulatory setting. This tool is really to give us a sense and a flavor for what those trees are doing. So this is a prospective way of looking at it. You can also use it in terms of looking at trees that actually exist in your community and getting a sense of what kind of services they're providing. This is the tree that is, when you come straight up Division and you hit Grandview Parkway, this is the tree that's right there at that intersection. So it's a 70-inch willow, and it's intercepting about 8,700 gallons of stormwater each year. Another spruce that's on that same strip, it's a 20-inch spruce, and it's intercepting about 2,700 gallons of stormwater a year. Again, just giving us a sense that trees are important in lots of different dimensions. Another tool that we've been using, and this is what I want to spend the rest of my time talking about, is a software analysis through what's called CityGreen. This is something we've been able to do in conjunction with the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments because they have this software. And what it helps you do is measure tree canopy cover, talk about the ecological benefits of that tree canopy cover, give you a dollar value. Again, not something that you would use, say, in a budgeting setting, but it gives you a sense, a flavor for the value that those trees are providing. It gives you a sense as well for the value of your green infrastructure that you're creating in your community, and helps, hopefully, helps policymakers, decision makers like yourselves with planning and managing. An example from the city of Detroit and the surrounding area, they were looking at a planting area of more than 27,000 acres. Found that in 2005 they had a tree canopy cover of about 31%. So what they wanted to look at was what were their trends in open space, trees, and urban land covers over a 10-year period, and found that they had a decline, but mostly outside of the downtown area. So perhaps not surprisingly that you're seeing more people moving out of the area, and that you're, as a result, having a decline in tree canopy cover in that area. But finding that 31% tree canopy cover was providing these kinds of ecological services, 190.8 million cubic feet of stormwater management. And when that says representing $382 million in value, what they're talking about is if you were to cut those trees down and have to manage that stormwater through hard infrastructure, that's how much that hard infrastructure would cost you to build. Okay, so again, it's not the kind of thing that you may end up actually as a practical matter pursuing, but for some people it helps you, some people need a dollar amount to get some kind of a value on a particular asset. So this is one way of valuing it. I want to note that when this software is looking at stormwater, what it's looking at is what's called a 2-year, 24-hour event, which means that it's an event that happens on average once every 2 years, and it's the amount of rainfall that happens in that 24-hour event. In our area, those kind of events result in about 2.25 inches of rain. So it's a large rainfall, not a 100-year rainfall, but something that happens on average every 2 years. So this is the amount of stormwater that those trees are intercepting for those storm events. So for one storm event, on an annual basis, these trees are doing a lot more. They're intercepting more stormwater throughout the community on a regular basis. So we wanted to look at what was going on with our watershed. And with the help of the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments, did an analysis using this CityGreen software. This is what ends up, what the digital information looks like. It really doesn't, particularly on this scale and in this setting, you really can't tell too much from this map. But basically what they're doing is looking at land cover and looking at tree canopy cover, and doing that from aerial photography taken when the leaves are on the trees. Okay? What we found that as of 2009, our status is that we have over 300,000 acres of tree canopy cover, which ends up being about 48.7% of the land in the watershed has tree canopy cover on it. That tree canopy cover results in almost 20 million pounds of air pollutants removed, and almost 130,000 tons of carbon sequestered. And from our perspective, the most important thing is a rather large amount of cubic feet of stormwater, 1.7 billion cubic feet, about, well, 1.65 billion cubic feet of stormwater intercepted. We also wanted to look at change over time. So what we looked at was photography from 2001 compared to 2009. And what we found was that we've lost 4,000 acres of cover throughout the watershed, which results in the loss of ecosystem services, particularly from our perspective with respect to stormwater. So what that means is that the watershed, as a result of the loss of that tree canopy cover, is now having to absorb an additional 30 million cubic feet of stormwater when we get those kind of rain events. Each time we get those kind of rain events, we've got the watershed has to absorb that amount of water. A bunch of that water, as a result, is going into surface waters without any kind of treatment or slowing down, or absorption into vegetation. That's of concern to us. That's not a good trend for water quality. This just sections out that information a little bit more specifically. Here's the numbers from 2009 and 2001 to 2009, and the loss in acreage and the loss in the gross amount of stormwater storage. A comparison across the 7 subwatersheds. So these are the 7 smaller subwatersheds, not the Boardman, not Elk River Chain of Lakes. You'll notice not a huge change in any of these, which frankly is true for all the watersheds, but there's enough change that this looks a lot larger than the change on the other, but you need to pay attention to this scale. This is Elk River Chain of Lakes, so there was 1,000 acres of tree canopy cover lost in Elk River Chain of Lakes, resulting in almost 9 million cubic feet of stormwater storage lost. This is the Boardman River Valley, where we had the largest amount of tree canopy cover lost. Again, you have, the scale makes it look large compared to some of the other subwatersheds, but it is the largest amount that we had lost, and frankly, that is of concern to us. And we don't know exactly why that tree canopy cover is lost. Obviously, as you guys know, we do have state forest lands in the Boardman River Valley, but part of our next steps will be looking at why and where that loss is occurring. This shows you what this looks like on digital, when you're looking at the actual digital information. So this is just one section of the Boardman River Valley in the digital information, but it shows you here's the tree canopy cover for 2001, and there's 2009. So if you look at certain areas, you can see big, sort of chunks that have disappeared. And the chunks are what really make us think that some of this is forestry practices, that we're losing tree canopy cover and forestry practices. Now, what we need to know is, so are the plans to replant those areas or not? Get a better sense of what the long-term plan is for DNR. But in some areas, it's not forestry practices. It's, a land use change that is going to have a negative impact over time if that trend continues. This shows you just a percentage of tree canopy cover as it exists currently in 2009. And I do want to point out that for some of the subwatersheds, so the first column is the overall watershed, where we're almost at 50%. Some of the subwatersheds are above 50%. Most of them are slightly below. But for example, I want you to keep in mind, Old Mission, it shows a little less than 30%. If you're familiar with Old Mission, and it's true for Mitchell Creek and some of these other subwatersheds, we have a lot of orchards in those areas. Those were counted as croplands, I believe, so they do not show up as tree canopy cover. That's something, those orchards are still providing some great services in terms of protecting stormwater. And frankly, what's particularly interesting about the Old Mission Peninsula is that they actually, if you look just at the information about Old Mission, they actually had a small increase in their ability to absorb stormwater. Although they lost 19 acres of tree canopy cover, they gained in cropland cover. So they gained in orchards or other crops. And that land, that gain, that area of gain provided additional areas where stormwater was going to be absorbed. So as a general matter, basically what that means is that the land use choices that are being made on Old Mission Peninsula are resulting in being able to manage stormwater better. Now, I live on Old Mission. I'd love to believe that we can attribute that to the Farmland Preservation Program. We can't say that just from this analysis, but it's a nice correlation. So some of the next steps we're looking at are continuing to share this information with folks like you and decision makers, planners, with the general public, discussing how we should use this information. You know, should we be looking at setting goals for protecting tree canopy cover? For example, does a township want to say, hey, I want to look just at what's going on in our township, and if we have a current tree canopy cover of 30% or 40% or 50%, do we want to set that as our standard and make sure we don't drop below that? Which would be a great thing for water quality, to have those kinds of baselines. Or do we want to look at things like tree protection ordinances, where not necessarily a specific tree, but where you say if you're going to cut down a tree on a site, you've got to plant, 2 more, or, because the new ones will be, could potentially be smaller than the one you've cut down, or some sort of a system where you're making sure that you're getting replacement of any trees that are cut down. Those kinds of things are some ways we could follow up on protecting tree canopy cover. We also want to be doing some finer resolution work, particularly in some areas of concern. We're going to be working with the city in the Kids Creek area, and there may be some other areas where we want to look at a finer resolution. This was all done at 30 meters, which is a pretty, it's a pretty broad brush. So it would be nice to do some in a finer resolution. And we can also use it to conduct future scenarios. You could use it on a broad scale level. You could use it on a site-specific level. The software I'm referring to here. You could take a site and say, hey, if we plant, if we cut down these trees, what's that going to mean in terms of stormwater management? If we plant a bunch of trees, what's that going to mean in terms of stormwater management? And obviously, one of the other things we want to do is plant trees, because 1, it's good for water quality, and 2, it's fun. So that's sort of just some general information I wanted to share with you about the initiative, the information that we're getting from this software analysis. Wanted to let you know that that kind of information is available. We're going to be sharing it, as I said, with lots of other local governments, and potentially, hopefully, coming back and talking about maybe more so with your planning commission about ways to protect tree canopy cover throughout the county. Any questions? Did I stay in my timeline?
You did good.
Yeah, Dennis.
Ellen, was this considered when the Grand Vision process was ongoing? Is there any mention of it in the Grand Vision resulting study?
We were a little behind
the
Grand Vision. So we just completed this analysis in July, and so that the Grand Vision stuff was really pretty much completed. It is something that is being talked about in the Natural Resources Working Group of the Grand Vision, so it's something that those folks are well aware of.
Good.
Yeah, Ross.
Ellen, early on when you were giving the presentation, you were talking about, I think, state of Michigan as a whole, and you were giving statistics for community and urban land on tree cover.
Do you want me to go back to that slide?
No.
Okay.
The question is, when you started talking about the Grand Traverse watershed, you were talking about everything there, right?
Within the whole watershed.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
What I mean is you were not breaking out, for instance,
Correct.
the commercial forestry
Correct.
areas.
So,
Okay.
and that's why I was making the comments about the state forest lands. They are, although they're not in private ownership, they're clearly being, some of them at least, are clearly being managed for timber.
Right.
But they're still included in the overall analysis, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why we need to ask some questions about what's going on in the Boardman River Valley, and what about planting and replacement. Yeah.
You could probably put on a graph your yearly loss of forest, and the amount that you lose a year. I bet you if you went back and checked with people in the timber industry, you would find it related to the price of timber.
Oh,
Because when the price is up, they cut more.
They cut more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's been up and down all over in the
Oh,
last 5
yeah.
years. It's
Yeah.
been, it's really fluctuating.
Yeah.
Generally, it's been high, though.
You'd be thrilled to know the Boy Scouts, I think, just planted like hundreds of trees. I think it's like I can't even remember the number, unbelievable amount of trees.
Well, and those, that's the kind of working with other organizations to pinpoint places where plantings are, going to occur and where they're going to do great things for water quality and that kind of thing are, the kinds of next steps we're looking to pursue.
Did the Watershed Center take any position on biomass? So
We
curious.
were doing this analysis during that discussion, but I think the results of this, part of the questions we had about biomass was where was the biomass going to come from and how much was needed for the plant. And that's the concern we would have had. If it would have resulted in needing a lot more of biomass, of tree matter, and that coming from the watershed, that would have, could potentially have a negative impact on water quality. And even if if we needed a lot more biomass to really be generating enough power from that plant, even if it's not coming from our watershed, that means we're taking it from somebody else's watershed, and is that really a great thing to do? I think there's, most foresters would say there's probably, a turnover rate that you could be sustaining within our watershed. The question is, was that what was being proposed? You could also, for example, imagine a scenario where you're looking at what's currently farmland as opposed to what's currently forest land, and having contract farming going on there where you're growing a tree stock that would then be harvested for the biomass plant. That would be a great thing, because then then that's a turnover. You're taking a farmland that's not currently in forestry. Well, I don't know, maybe saying it's a great thing is a value statement, but it's something that would, wouldn't be a negative thing for water quality. So we certainly had some questions. We didn't take a stand, either way on the biomass plant.
Just curious, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is consent calendar. Would you read the consent calendar, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed from and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. 1. Correspondence from Department of Energy, Labor, and Economic Growth dated August 12, 2010. 2. Correspondence from Peterson Machinery Sales dated August 13, 2010. 3. Correspondence email from Richard Brown dated August 16, 2010. 4. Correspondence email from Vince Nelson dated August 16, 2010. 5. Resolutions regarding M. certification, Hillsdale, Lake, Livingston, and Van Buren counties. 6. Resolution regarding Great Lakes protection from Asian carp, Lenawee County. 7. Resolution regarding House Bill 6154, binding arbitration, Livingston County. 8. Central Board minutes of May 12, 2010. 9. G5 Subcommittee minutes of June 7, 2010. 10. Boardman River Dams Implementation Team minutes of June 17, 2010. 11. Board of Public Works minutes of June 28, 2010. 12. Resource Recovery Council minutes of July 1, 2010. 13. Sewer and Water Committee minutes of July 8, 2010. 14. Conservation District minutes of July 12, 2010. 15. Boardman River Dams Implementation Team minutes of July 15, 2010. 16. Planning Commission minutes of July 20, 2010. 17. Road Commission minutes of July 21, 2010. 18. Public Health and Safety Committee draft minutes of August 4, 2010. 19th Resource Management Administration Committee draft minutes of August 11, 2010. 20. Ways and Means Committee draft minutes of August 18, 2010. Referrals. 21. Referral from Ways and Means, August 18th. A. Resolution allocating recovery zone volume cap and approving a project for purposes of American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 and recovery zone bond application. B. Resolution approving project area and project district area and appointment of 2 additional directors to the Economic Development Corporation of the Grand Traverse County Hagerty Insurance Agency, LLC. Approvals. Public Health and Safety Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 22. Acceptance of grant funding, Women's Health Care Giving Circle. 23. Emergency Management Performance Grant. 24, community corrections, contracts for 2010 through 2011. 25, staffing plan amendment, Sheriff's Office. 26, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office, Marine Division, Police boat bid. 27, snowmobile purchase, Lakes and Trails Power Sports. Resource Management Administration Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 28, support for Day of Caring and Community Celebration of Volunteers. 29, approval of the 2010 remonumentation service contracts. 30, HUD Community Challenge Planning and Rotary Cherries Program grant applications. 31, Human Resources, evaluation of job descriptions and point values. 32, Staffing Plan Amendment, MSU Extension. 33, District Court Intercounty Operating Agreement. Ways and Means Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 34, replacement of the Governmental Center exterior stairway. 35, personal property tax audits. 36, 2010 phone system renewal contracts. 37, budget adjustments. And 38, Shell fleet card authorization. Ad hoc Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. 39, appointments to boards and community corrections.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to have anything removed from the consent calendar? Hearing none, how about the board? Larry?
Item number 35.
Mr. Chairman, I have to ask that number 34 be pulled because I will abstain from that vote, please.
For the sake of procedure, item number 21A and B.
Okay.
Should we pull those off and handle those one at a time since they're not really part of the procedure of the consent calendar? We had to get further information from the meeting. Is that the way to handle that?
Bob, how would you recommend that we handle that? These were appointments of the two additional directors, and the interviews were held after Ways and Means for the Recovery Zone Committee as required by the law. Should we handle those separately?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we should pull 21A and B so as that we can.
Yeah, A, you did not have a resolution at the time that you
And you got it
considered
now.
this, so you have it now.
So
Anybody else?
So Sonny can handle that item, right?
sure.
Okay.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there support?
Support?
Moved and supported by roll call vote.
Commissioner Stepka?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Thomas?
Yep. Thank you. Next is the administrator's report.
On your desk is a copy of the resolution that was prepared based on the recommendations of the interview committee to fill 2 vacancies on the park board. You should all have a copy of that, and I don't know who chaired that committee, but maybe the chairman.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Do you want to speak to it, maybe, Mr.
Right.
Chairman?
We interviewed 6 people, I believe is a total, on 3 different dates for 2 vacancies that were on the Parks and Recreation Commission, both due to resignations of existing commissioners. One of them is a term that expires December 31st of 2010. The other one is a term ending December 31st, 2011. And that is a typo on the resolution that's in front of us because one of them is for 2011. Scott Joseph's term expires December 31st, 2011. And William Doyer's term will expire December 31st, 2010. So we do need to make that change on the resolution that's before you. And we had good candidates, and it's nice to see that we have qualified people that are interested in helping make sure our community stays at the quality that it is. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the resolution appointing William Doyer to the remaining of the 3-year term ending December 31st, 2010, and Scott Joseph for the remainder of the 3-year term ending December 31st, 2011.
Second.
Is there support? Richardson? Discussion?
I would just note, Mr. Chairman, that it was a unanimous decision. Excuse me.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Was again.
Dean?
Claim summary for the month of August was provided. You should have a copy of that. The total claims for the month of August are $8,530,374.94. The slightly higher than last month due to the collection of the state education tax that we remit to the state of Michigan. That was a payment of $1.7 million on August 11th.
Perhaps if they don't reinstate the revenue sharing in a couple of years, we just keep that number and call it even.
Yeah. I would not advise that.
It's about the same.
Could be trouble.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the total claims payment of $8,530,374.94.
Support.
Supported by Fran. By roll call vote?
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
And then we have,
I move that we approve the STEPCA and APRIA claims of $2,002.62.
Support.
Support by Max Bauer. By roll call vote?
Commissioner Max Bauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Stepka?
Abstain.
Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, the 2010 Human Resources snapshot is in there for your information only. And that completes my section.
You don't have any add-on?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, the items removed from the consent calendar. Item 21, A and B.
Mr. Chairman, if I can handle item 21, since these are basically both referrals from the EDC, of which I'm the county commission representative.
Yeah, I agree with that.
First one is a resolution allocating recovery zone volume cap and approving a project for purposes of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. And I would move that that we approve the project as presented for Hagerty Insurance.
And the accompanying
And the
resolution.
accompanying resolutions for the amount of $8.1 million in change. And I don't know if our staff, Ms. Drenzi, wants to make any comments about this or not, but
I'll support.
Now if they want to speak. You got anything to say?
My name's Dan Beitler. I'm the Vice President of Accounting and Controller at Hagerty, and I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. And these additional recovery zone bonds are a factor in allowing us to build a larger building than we had initially planned on our site in Old Town. And we're also thankful for the parking deck that opened this morning. Any questions about the project or the status? Yes.
you said a larger building, but it's actually twice the size that you originally planned?
Yes, approximately twice the size, from about a 22,000 square foot building to about a 44,000 square foot building.
Okay. That's very impressive from my mind, so.
Does this mean you're going to lower the insurance on my old car?
Just keep it part of the garage, Dick, and you'll be okay.
And even more impressive than the fact that we're going to have a new building, we're going to have more jobs.
Yes, we're continuing to
Jobs in
grow.
this community is huge.
That's good.
jobs.
And we're really glad that Hagerty's a part of the community and plans to stay part of the community, and there's just another step in it, so I think everybody's happy with that.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried.
Thank you.
Item B.
Okay, item B, as part of the bonding procedure, state law required us, or the EDC, to add 2 additional directors specifically to deal with the bonding that would be being issued with the help of the Economic Development Corporation. And so, in regards to that, we interviewed 2 individuals, and I would move that we appoint Tim Burton and Mark Eckhoff to serve as extra directors specifically for the purposes of the EDC bonding for the recovery zone facility bonds.
Support.
Supported? Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carries. Now we're down to
My turn, I think.
item 34.
Mr. Chairman, I've asked that this be pulled as I am possibly going to be a subcontractor on part of this project because I bid the railings to 5 of the 6 contractors that bid the job, so,
You had it pretty much covered any way they went, no?
well, it's kind of what I do all day.
I have a question, Dennis. On this electromelt system, what is the total of that? Do you have an offhand ballpark figure? Wasn't it $4,500?
No, the cost of that was around $28,000, as I recall.
$28,000.
Yeah, it's about $4,800 worth of electrical, I believe, has to be done to the building.
Oh,
to
$4,800,
feed
Right.
that's
to
what I
it.
was-
Right.
There was some electrical changes that we have to do to the building to facilitate it.
Okay.
And the reason this is back to us is because of the low bidder that we came to you with last month did not include the cost of repairing the sidewalks. That was part of the requirement of the bid, so that bid had to be thrown out and replaced by the next lower bidder, which did include that in the price.
So the total of $56,800 would be reduced by?
No, that's the total.
If
That
we
is the
took out the
total.
electromelt system?
By around $28,000,
Yeah.
yes.
Because there was some concern expressed to me about spending $28,000 on an electromelt system when we're laying off 40 employees or so. And I just thought I'd bring that up and voice concern about that.
Well, I
Me
think
too.
it's a legitimate concern. I understand that. It's a one-time expense
Yeah.
to offset an ongoing expense for maintenance of the sidewalk, and also the fact that clearly if we salt the sidewalk and we have to do it by hand, it will deteriorate more quickly and will require replacement sooner than it would.
And as you're saying, we'd have constant maintenance with people shoveling it and other such
Absolutely.
things.
Yep. We have this system in at the Hall of Justice, and it's working very well, and it requires no maintenance at all.
I have a quick question for you. I'm familiar, remember the system at the Hall of Justice and been over there in the middle of winter, and it does work well. The sidewalks in the front of the building or the sidewalk below at the bottom of the steps, have we had any slip and fall injuries on any of those? Have we been sued over any of those? Any complaints, any slip and falls?
I can't recall, I cannot recall any on the lower stairway at all, Commissioner. I'm not sure about the upper stairway. None come to mind, but I would have to check the records.
Okay, we don't have to check the records.
And none come to mind
Okay.
immediately.
That's fine. The point I was just trying to make was obviously we're clearing the salt and the ice from those areas and that nobody's having a problem going through those. And I have no problem repairing the stairs that are there and taking out the other set, but I'm not in favor of paying the additional, $28,000 for the heating of the steps.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that Grand Traverse County approve Coal Incorporated in the amount of $56,800 for the replacement of the stairway, upper-level sidewalk, curb, and gutter, and installation of the Raychem electromelt system as specified in the original bid request.
I'll second.
Oh, one other quick question. Who clears those front sidewalks?
Some of it's done by our maintenance employees. Much of it is done by prison inmates through the Pugsley prison contract that we have,
Which could go away.
which we've actually been notified they will not sign a contract after this September 1st. So They will still do some work as long as they have bodies, but they're not signing any more contracts.
Well, they did that last year too, and then they continued it.
Yep, that's exactly, it's a budgetary issue for them.
So that 58 includes the electrical.
It does.
Sorry, but my shirt's too tight.
Had too much for dinner.
It shrunk. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the
Roll
same?
call, please.
He's got to
Okay.
abstain.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Friend?
No.
Wheelock?
Abstain, please.
Stepka?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yep. Motion passes. Okay, the next item is number 35, personal property tax audits.
Mr. Chairman, I pulled the item just to clarify what I believe to be the action of Ways and Means, and that was to move forward with a request for proposals to hire a company to only identify those businesses in Grand Traverse County that were not paying personal property taxes. And I want to make sure that the public understands that we're not trying to identify those names to go out and do a audit. That it was the intent of the equalization director just to get the list of names so they can send them a form and ask them to complete it. So with the resolution, I would suggest just a couple word changes. I would, on the first paragraph, I would delete on the first paragraph, the second sentence, proceed with an audit program to, I would delete that, so it just reads, and reviewed request from equalization director to assure accuracy and collection of property taxes. And in third paragraph, I would delete the third line, that should be assessed. Delete that and just have a period after property tax. And on the sentence, or the paragraph now therefore, I would insert that the Grand Traverse County approved proceeding with, and then insert a request for proposals for, and then go with hiring a company to identify all businesses in Grand Traverse County who are not paying personal property tax, period. And delete, that should be assessed. And with that, unless anybody has any issues with the change, I would make a motion to approve.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Are you asking Commissioner Inman a request for proposal or a request for qualification?
Dennis, I believe it was a request for proposals, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, you want to get the job done.
Yeah.
I don't recall which one it was.
I think it was a request
I'm
for
sure it was an
proposals.
RFP.
Yeah.
It was,
Okay.
she was talking about
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I would make a motion with those changes in the resolution.
I'll
to approve
second
as
it.
presented.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would agree with the fact that we approved doing the RFP, but we still haven't confirmed that we're going to hire the company until we
Right.
see what the RFPs cost.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think the emphasis of this too is we're trying to get people to notify them so they can voluntarily comply rather than do assessments and.
You know, I had the thought in my mind that a well-crafted article in the paper might do a lot for us. You know, just so people knew they're supposed to pay property tax, because I know some that are in business that don't pay. And I did this for several years at Green Lake Township, and it is the job of the township to do the personal property tax, not only the assessment, but keeping up on who's in business. And I think if we're going, really heading towards doing some auditing, I think we should audit everybody in the county. That's my personal thought, because I've known people who don't pay, and I've known people who don't pay enough. I paid it for years, and I couldn't hardly get out of it, because I was the one that was doing it. But to me, it's a bad law. But it's there, and it's there for us to use. So I'm going to support this, but particularly right now, people really can't be paying, anymore to keep their business going, but I don't know what I can say. The other thing is, it is the township's job. They should be doing the audits, but
Well, I'd like to add too, there's just some businesses that have personal property that is no tangible value to them. However, they would be an assessment against them.
you only claim what you're depreciating.
Yeah.
And they can get in a jam, because if you're on your income taxes, if you're taking a bunch of depreciation on a bunch of personal property that you use in your business, you're taking a depreciation through the IRS, and you're not claiming it locally on your property tax, you can get in a jam over that.
Well, the depreciation ratios are considerably different between personal property tax and the IRS.
It's right, there's a different schedule. But, and you gotta remember that you're talking about some big taxpayers here. The utility companies, the power companies, every pole and wire you see is personal property.
And we're talking about some small taxpayers too.
Well, that's the ones that'll ultimately hurt the most, because the big ones get their money back from the little ones anyway.
And this was the recommendation of the equalization director.
Well, that doesn't even mean I agree with it.
Well, and I
Anyway.
still believe it is a township responsibility. It's not something the county should be doing.
It is. And they generally accept the returns they're sent in. So, all right. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Commissioner Hooper.
No.
Friend?
Yes.
Wheelock?
No.
Stepka?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yep. Oh, now where are we? Almost time to go home.
Almost.
Do we have any unfinished business?
No.
Do we have any new business?
No.
Here's your second chance for public comment. Announcements. Got none of those. No need for a closed session?
No.
Motion to
Motion to adjourn? I didn't hear any support.
Second.
You gotta stay here
Aye.
so we get support. Meeting
We're getting
adjourned.
out of here at 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Just a point, I believe the Conservation District's annual recognition.
Run,
Make you a line.
run
I
home.
gotta tell you.
Make sure that
Let her know you know what you're talking about.
You say it's on the 16th?